3 F1 weekends have been enough to expose the car problems costing a big chunk of lap time that each team must fix. The race has been trackside and in the paddock throughout the first 3 events and pre-season testing. Based on that, speaking to the drivers and team personnel and analysing the data, we've picked out the biggest weakness holding every team back. No team encapsulates the fact that the 2026 regulations are all about the power unit better than Ferrari. It has what some rivals suggest is the best car in terms of corner performance, but its power disadvantage means it's not at the level of Mercedes. As Lewis Hamilton said in China, Ferrari is hugely down when compared to the Mercedes engine. So what does that actually mean? Well, there's reckoned to be a deficit from the V6 engine rumoured to be somewhere in the region of 20 brake horsepower. While the smaller turbo makes it supremely responsive and outstanding off the line, this potentially plays a part in that. Battery energy is also consumed more quickly as a result of compensating for this. This makes it a raceable car, one that led both in Australia and China, but that ultimately always falls behind Mercedes, and in Japan it also slipped behind McLaren. Team principal Fred Vasseur expects Ferrari to be given the chance to upgrade its engine when ADUO, the additional development and upgrade opportunities that can be triggered if the FIA deems performance to be at least 2% down, kicks in. But until then, this is a baked-in disadvantage when it comes to lap time, although the cost of it will vary by track configuration. Most teams, at least those without Ferrari engines, have struggled with starts, but Audi's difficulties are on another level, with Gabriele Bortoleto declaring them terrible. This is first and foremost down to the power unit having what is thought to be the largest turbo in the field. That's good for potential peak power, but means far more inertia. That makes it harder work to spin it up and to keep it in the right window to optimise boost pressure for the start. On the 6 occasions an Audi has taken the start this year, it has lost places 5 times. Based on position on the grid versus the end of lap 1, that's an average loss of just under 4 places. While the drivers can improve their getaways, the problems are consistent. The turbo is spun up by applying the throttle to get the boost pressure where it's required. But then it's necessary to reduce throttle just before the start itself, and that pressure drops. This means the car bogs down, then suffers wheel spin in the second phase when the power belatedly kicks in. This is the primary weakness for Audi, because no matter how well you qualify, if you are usually 4 places worse off come the end of the first lap, then you are up against it to score points. And worst of all, Audi boss Mattia Binotto doesn't think there's an obvious fix. If Audi gets the opportunity to introduce upgrades under the ADUO rules, maybe that could change this year. But for now, Audi is stuck with it. Even the all-conquering Mercedes W17 isn't perfect. While its rivals have never managed to beat it, they have troubled it so far this year. Ferrari in Australia and China, and McLaren in Japan both managed to run ahead of Mercedes and cause problems for George Russell and Kimi Antonelli in battle. Particularly early in the races, it's never been a foregone conclusion that Mercedes will lead. The Mercedes is outstanding when it comes to the integration of harvesting and aerodynamic characteristics. The ERS is efficient, helped by long gearing, and the engine puts out good power. The chassis generates plenty of rear downforce and is strong on traction and under braking. However, those strengths are compromised when not in clear air, which can be costly early on thanks to not being the best off the line. That's not only compared to Ferrari, but also McLaren, although when there have been poor starts, they have been for varying reasons. Currently, its weaknesses are an inconvenience rather than disastrous, but as rivals close in, they could exploit them more. Williams' start to the season has been a huge disappointment, slumping to become the 9th fastest car, having finished 5th in the Constructors' Championship last year. Its big initial problem is that the car is overweight. That's partly a consequence of having to react to struggles passing the crash test. The team hasn't revealed the exact figure, but it was by as much as 30 kilos early on, worth 9/10 of a second, even if you use the most conservative rule of thumb of 3/10 lost per 10 kilos. Fortunately, a good step is expected to be made towards rectifying that with upgrades for the next race in Miami next month. Less encouragingly, as Carlos Sainz has pointed out, there are other problems. It's not just the downforce that there are concerns about. Low transfers through corners are compromising the contact patch of the inside tyres, which is compromising grip and traction, not freewheeling as such, but that kind of mechanism. The high rake design appears not to be working as hoped. There is at least significant lap time to be gained when the weight is reduced, but that comes at a cost and won't solve all of Williams' troubles. The Haas VF26 is a strong all-rounder, with a good, usable spread of downforce that inspires confidence in the drivers. However, it struggles when it comes to qualifying pace. Judged by single lap speed, Haas has the 8th fastest car. That puts it at the back of the 14 midfield group. Haas has only reached the 3rd stage of qualifying twice out of 8 attempts, on both occasions in the hands of Ollie Behrman in China. Yet the race results are far more impressive, with consistent points finishes. Part of the problem is the challenge of optimising deployment for a push lap. That was something Esteban Ocon highlighted after qualifying 12th in Japan. However, both of these areas should be improved quickly, which would make Haas even more formidable at the front of the midfield. Early on, McLaren's big problem was not being able to optimise the potential of the power unit as effectively as Mercedes. While the works team still has a tiny edge when it comes to that, McLaren has closed the gap dramatically, and that has revealed its true weakness: a downforce deficit. The McLaren is at its best in slower corners, and the underlying concept has, according to team principal Andrea Stella, significant potential. But while there's no fundamental weakness, it's simply giving away that little bit of time. Part of this might be baked into the car. It has a shorter gearbox, and as a result, shorter wheelbase, around 10 cm less than the maximum allowed. That has made it easier to keep the car weight down, but perhaps at the cost of downforce opportunity. However, the team promises upgrades will significantly improve the McLaren for the next race in Miami, meaning there's plenty of reason for encouragement after it flirted with victory at Suzuka. Last year, the V-Carb was a forgiving car with a wide setup window, but the change of regulations has made it a trickier beast, particularly on a fast lap. In pre-season testing, it looked difficult under braking. That improved, but there have still been occasions, for example in Australia qualifying for Liam Lawson, where hints of that remain. But generally, as Lawson says, it's a car that's easy to overdrive compared to last year. It also suffers from a little understeer on the softer tyre compounds, which isn't helpful for qualifying. The positive thing is that the car has a good peak, if you can hit it, and that's translated into points finishes in all 4 races held so far.
Calling all motorsport fans, have you heard of Silverstone Woodlands? It's the biggest and closest campsite to Silverstone Circuit, the ultimate base for the Formula 1 British Grand Prix weekend. And if you're booking your stay, we've got an exclusive 15% off for you. Camp right next to the action and do race weekend properly. Big screens showing every race, live music into the night, incredible street food and thousands of fans all in one place. Camping or glamping, whatever your vibe, we've got you covered. Use code THERACE15 at checkout to save 15% on your booking. Hit the link in the description to lock it in.
The Cadillac Ferrari MAC26 has exceeded expectations for this brand new team, but unlike Aston Martin, which it has been faster than so far, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with the package. As Sergio Perez puts it, the balance is not too bad, it's just that we are lacking the load. The power units are crucial to performance in 2026, and Cadillac having the Ferrari engine is key to its advantage over Aston Martin, but downforce still counts. From pre-season testing, the Cadillac has required the drivers to do plenty of work behind the wheel, but not to contain any specific limitation. The car simply lacks grip and therefore ends up moving around more. There was an improvement last time out in Japan with tweaks both to the fences and the central part of the diffuser. This conferred not only an aero load gain but also widened the setup envelope of the car. There's an upgrade package described by Perez as big coming for Miami, but there's no guarantee that adding downforce allows you to retain the relatively benign handling characteristics, so this is a big test of the team's capabilities. Alpine has put its 2025 struggles far behind it, scoring points consistently in 2026. However, the car is dogged by understeer that's particularly costly at high speed. In Australia, this meant it struggled badly, although Pierre Gasly demonstrated it had good race pace by battling through to 10th in the Grand Prix. But things improved in China, and that allowed Gasly to pick up 6th in Shanghai, followed by 7th at Suzuka. Upgrades are coming, and it's hoped that the understeer problem can be eliminated soon. Once that is ticked off, it will be about making fast enough progress relative to the opposition to close the gap to the leading teams. And that's what Alpine is now focused on, as leading the midfield is not the limit of its ambitions. The Honda power unit is clearly the first order problem for Aston Martin, estimated to be worth around 2 seconds per lap of its deficit. But it's clear that while Honda has its troubles, you can't entirely separate them from the extent to which the design demands of Aston Martin's technical supremo, Adrian Newey, contributed to that. This led to the request to shorten the overall length of the power unit, which Honda delivered, but at the cost of redesigning some peripheral parts of the package, although the V6 itself remained unchanged. Integration plays a part, which is why such demands cannot be entirely separated from Honda's struggles. The priority problem is the vibrations that have led to battery damage. It's unclear when this will be resolved, although Aston Martin tested parts in practice in Japan to dampen those vibrations being transmitted to the driver via the steering wheel. Mike Crack said these showed promise, but they weren't raced as they were new components. But that's just one problem. The V6 engine is down on power, which has a compound disadvantage as it also requires more battery energy to be used to compensate. The Honda is also struggling when it comes to energy recovery efficiency. This means that even if the reliability problems are fixed, and right now this is the priority for Honda and it will be some time, the performance simply isn't there. As for the car itself, aerodynamically, Newey claims it can lead the midfield, but until the worst of the power unit limitations are eliminated, there's no way to test that. It says a lot about the depth of Red Bull's problems that the power unit isn't its main weakness. After all, this is the first F1 engine produced by a brand new powertrain's operation. Instead, the big concern is the car is, at times, undrivable, and with troubling echoes of both 2024 and 25, there are big balance problems. We've gone for mid-corner understeer as the main problem, with Max Verstappen complaining regularly about difficulties achieving the required rotation. But it's not just mid-corner that things are going wrong. In China and Japan, Verstappen complained of setup changes not being able to cure its ailments, with one axle or the other hitting trouble and a resulting lack of confidence behind the wheel. As team principal Laurent Mekies admits, Red Bull has head-scratching balance and characteristics problems, and that's left it floundering in the midfield.